You are carrying a heavy weight that does not belong to you. Every bitter remark, every subtle manipulation, and every unnecessary argument has been packed away inside your mind. You keep carrying this weight because you believe that eventually, you can fix the toxic people who gave it to you. You believe that if you just explain yourself one more time, they will finally understand your perspective. But that day is an absolute illusion. It is time to drop the burden. There is one quiet, devastatingly effective decision you can make right now to reclaim your life. Apply this single principle today, and toxic individuals will permanently lose their power over you. To understand how to permanently neutralize toxicity, you must first understand what it feeds on. Toxic individuals do not survive on logic, and they certainly do not thrive on mutual respect. They survive on a very specific currency, your emotional reaction. Think about the dynamics of a toxic interaction. They provoke, they criticize, they cross boundaries, or they manipulate. Why? Because they are starved for influence. When they see your peace disappear, they feel powerful. When they make you angry, they know they have successfully breached your defenses. They expect endless explanations from you because every time you frantically explain yourself, you prove that they still command your attention. Your anger, your frustration, your guilt, and your desperate attempts to defend yourself are exactly the nourishment they are looking for. Every time you react, you are actively paying them. You are handing them the keys to your emotional state. But the most dangerous part of this dynamic is not what the toxic person does to you in the moment. It is what your own mind continues to do long after they have left the room. Let us examine the echo chamber of the mind. A toxic person might deliver a single insult or a passive-aggressive remark. The physical act of them speaking those words takes only a few seconds. Yet, how long does that moment live inside of you? Hours? Days? Sometimes years. This happens because your mind becomes an echo chamber for their negativity. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack. Every unjust criticism, every betrayal, and every unfair judgment becomes a stone. The toxic person only handed you one stone. But you are the one who chose to put it into your backpack. You are the one who continues carrying it, feeling its weight with every step you take, replaying the scenario over and over again while you shower, while you drive, or while you lie awake at night. The suffering continues not because the other person is still speaking, but because you refuse to drop the stone. This brings us to the greatest trap of all, the fixer illusion. Many good, compassionate people waste the best years of their lives trying to convince someone who has already made the conscious decision not to understand them. You search for the perfect combination of words, hoping that one final, brilliant explanation will suddenly transform their heart or force them to see the error of their ways. We do this because our ego demands justice. We want them to admit they were wrong. We want to fix the unfixable. But wisdom teaches something entirely different. Not every misunderstanding deserves clarification. Not every accusation warrants a response. You cannot heal someone who is deeply attached to their own sickness, and you cannot bring peace to someone who actively thrives in chaos. Believing you can fix a toxic person by arguing with them is like trying to put out a fire by pouring gasoline on it. The moment you let go of the desperate need to win the argument, you instantly take back your power. The bridge between emotional exhaustion and complete emotional freedom is built on a single, profound realization. You must surrender the desire to control how other people perceive you. This brings us to the core of the single action you must take. It is a radical psychological shift that ancient Stoics and modern thinkers alike point to as the ultimate defense mechanism. It is the practice of the let them philosophy. From a very young age, we are conditioned to seek validation. We are taught that if someone misunderstands us, we should clarify our intentions. If someone is upset with us, we should fix it. If someone accuses us of something untrue, we must vigorously defend our honor. But when you apply this normal human conditioning to a toxic person, you walk directly into a carefully laid trap. Toxic individuals weaponize your desire to be understood. The let them philosophy is the exact opposite of this conditioning. It is the quiet, unwavering acceptance that people are allowed to be completely wrong about you. If they want to judge your choices, let them. If they want to twist your words and play the victim, let them. If they are absolutely committed to a version of you that exists only in their own distorted imagination, let them. This practice is incredibly difficult at first because the human ego screams for justice. Your ego will desperately want to say that the accusations are not true and that you need to show them the reality. But you must pause and ask yourself a sobering question: has showing a toxic person the truth ever actually worked? Embracing this mindset is not an act of surrender. It is not giving up, and it is certainly not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate display of emotional sovereignty. When you decide to let them be wrong, you are essentially stepping off the battlefield entirely. Imagine a toxic person charging at you with all their drama, their harsh accusations, and their chaotic negativity. They expect you to brace for impact. They expect a solid wall of resistance that they can push against. But when you apply this philosophy, you do not build a wall. You become space. They charge at you, and because there is absolutely nothing to push against, they simply stumble forward into the void. By allowing them to have their incorrect opinions, you instantly cut off their emotional food supply. You starve them of the reaction they so desperately crave to validate their own ego. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your inner peace. You do not owe a toxic person a front row seat to your emotional life. You are not responsible for how they interpret your perfectly reasonable decisions. If your healthy boundaries disappoint them, that disappointment is their personal burden to carry, not yours. When you become truly comfortable with being misunderstood by negative people, you become invincible to them. You become a person they can no longer manipulate. They will quickly realize that their usual tactics of guilt, shame, and passive aggression no longer yield any results. Because toxic individuals always seek easy emotional rewards, they will naturally pack up their chaos and move on, leaving you completely alone. Stepping off the battlefield is a profound decision, but maintaining your ground requires an internal arsenal. The tools you use to protect your newfound emotional sovereignty are unlike any conventional weapons. They do not inflict harm on others. Instead, they fortify your own spirit, rendering you completely immune to external chaos. The first and most vital tool in this arsenal is the power of the sacred pause. Human emotions are incredibly fast. Anger, defensiveness, and the desperate urge to explain yourself ignite in a fraction of a second. Toxic individuals instinctively know this. They design their words and actions to trigger your immediate, unthinking reaction. They want to bypass your wisdom and hook directly into your emotional reflexes. The sacred pause is your ultimate disruption of their strategy. It is the deliberate, conscious choice to create a gap between their provocation and your response. When someone drops a heavy insult, makes a passive-aggressive comment, or attempts to manipulate a situation, your initial instinct will always be to jump in and defend your ground. Instead, you must do something entirely unexpected. You must wait. You take a deep, slow breath. You observe the chaos they are trying to hand you, but you refuse to reach out and take it. In that quiet, expansive space of the pause, clarity appears. You begin to see their behavior not as a personal attack, but as a desperate reflection of their own internal disorder. You realize that responding immediately is exactly what they are waiting for. By simply pausing, you take control of the timing, and in doing so, you take control of the entire dynamic. This naturally leads to the second and most formidable tool you possess: the shield of silence. In our modern world, silence is frequently misunderstood as a sign of weakness, fear, or defeat. People believe that strength is measured by the sharpness of your words, the volume of your voice, or your ability to dominate an argument and secure the final word. But true strength is something much quieter. Silence is the absolute mastery of self. It is the profound discipline of remaining completely composed when everyone around you expects you to lose control. Imagine the sheer confusion of a toxic person who throws their best manipulative tactics at you, only to be met with a calm, unbothered silence. They expect a storm, but they hit a solid wall of nothingness. This kind of silence is terrifying to a toxic individual because it completely drains their emotional food supply. When they realize that their criticism produces no chaos, their drama earns no participation, and their manipulation creates no guilt, they are left standing alone with their own toxicity. Governing yourself begins with controlling your tongue before it controls you. A single sentence spoken in anger binds you emotionally to the very person you are trying to escape. Even after the conversation ends, your mind will continue to replay the argument, draining your energy for days to come. Silence protects your future from the regret of emotional blindness. Think about a magnificent mountain enduring a violent storm. The wind screams, the lightning strikes, and the rain pours down relentlessly. The mountain does not argue with the weather. It does not demand that the storm stop. It does not try to explain itself to the clouds. It simply remains exactly where it is, deeply rooted and entirely unmoved. Its strength comes from within, completely independent of the changing skies above. Your mind must become exactly like that mountain. Let their criticism come and go. Let their false opinions rise and fade away. Let their negativity pass by like dark, heavy clouds. None of these things can move you, define you, or harm you, unless you give them your voice and your attention. One of the greatest misunderstandings in human relationships is the myth of endless kindness. We are often taught that to be a good person, to be highly spiritual or deeply compassionate, we must be infinitely available to everyone around us. We believe that saying yes, even when it drains us, is a sign of noble character. We accept disrespect to avoid conflict, and we sacrifice our own peace to keep toxic people comfortable. But there is a harsh reality that you must eventually face. Kindness without boundaries is not compassion. It is self-neglect. A person who constantly gives away their energy, who never protects their inner peace, will eventually have absolutely nothing left to give to themselves or to those who truly deserve it. Compassion should never require abandoning your own well-being. This brings us to the true nature of boundaries. Many people hesitate to set limits because they view boundaries as aggressive. They see them as high, impenetrable walls built out of anger, resentment, and fear. But a true boundary is not a wall. It is a gate built with profound wisdom. Imagine a magnificent, flourishing garden. It is filled with vibrant flowers, rare plants, and delicate fruit. If this garden has no fence, anyone can walk through it. People who do not appreciate its beauty might trample the flowers, pull up the roots, and leave behind their trash. Eventually, the garden turns into a barren wasteland. But when the gardener installs a sturdy gate, the flowers begin to bloom again. The gate does not exist because the gardener hates the outside world. It exists because growth requires protection. Your inner life, your emotional energy, and your peace of mind are exactly like that garden. Without boundaries, you become completely vulnerable to constant damage from toxic visitors. A boundary simply allows you to choose who is worthy of entering your sacred space and who must safely remain on the outside. Boundaries are not only physical actions, they are mental and emotional agreements you make with yourself. Sometimes the most crucial boundary you will ever set is the silent refusal to let a toxic person live inside your thoughts. You can physically walk away from someone, but if you spend the next 3 days agonizing over what they said, they have still breached your gate. True emotional boundaries mean recognizing that their toxic behavior belongs entirely to them, not to you. You observe their chaos, but you refuse to absorb it. When you begin to implement these gates of wisdom, you will inevitably encounter pushback. Establishing a healthy limit will often make toxic people very uncomfortable. They might accuse you of becoming selfish, cold, or uncaring. They will try to use guilt to force you to open your gate once again. When this happens, you must remember one absolute truth. The only people who become angry when you set a healthy boundary are the exact people who are actively benefiting from you not having one. Their anger is not proof that you are doing something wrong. It is confirmation that your boundary was desperately needed. You do not need to raise your voice to enforce this limit. You do not need to argue or endlessly justify your right to peace. A calm, unwavering refusal is one of the most powerful tools you possess. Consistency transforms your boundaries into a permanent shield, teaching everyone around you exactly how you demand to be treated. Establishing a gate of wisdom is essential, but a gate is only as strong as the fortress behind it. There will be times when walking away from a toxic person is not an immediate option. You might share a workplace with them. You might be seated across from them at a family dinner. This is where the profound practice of emotional detachment becomes your absolute salvation. How do you sit in the same room with someone whose energy feels chaotic, without absorbing a single drop of it? You must learn to become the quiet, untouchable observer of your own life. When a toxic person begins to speak, complain, or provoke, they are essentially casting a fishing line into the water, desperately hoping you will bite. Emotional detachment means you see the bait perfectly clearly, you watch it sink, and you simply swim right past it. You do not respond with anger, and you certainly do not try to appease them. You offer them nothing but a neutral, entirely unbothered presence. Think of this practice as becoming a perfectly smooth stone. If you pour dark, muddy water over a sponge, the sponge absorbs every drop. It becomes heavy, stained, and weighed down by the dirt. But if you pour that same water over a smooth, polished stone, the water simply glides over the surface and falls away. The stone remains exactly as it was, unchanged and unaffected. When you are in the presence of someone dedicated to negativity, you must become the stone. Their harsh words, their passive-aggressive sighs, and their dramatic narratives will wash over you, entirely unable to penetrate your solid core. But how do you forge an inner core that's solid? It is not a magical gift you are born with. It is built, day by day, through the rigorous practice of your daily mental diet. Many people believe that discipline is purely physical. They think of lifting weights, running miles, or adhering to a strict physical routine. While physical discipline is valuable, it cannot protect you from emotional manipulation. True resilience is emotional discipline. It is the profound, conscious control of what you feed your mind. Your mind is the most powerful engine in existence, and it will run on whatever fuel you provide it. If you spend your time consuming outrage, engaging in toxic gossip, or constantly replaying past arguments in your head, you are feeding your mind a diet of pure anxiety. You are actively weakening the walls of your own fortress. Building an unshakable inner world begins the moment you open your eyes. The first thoughts of your day dictate your emotional baseline. If your very first act is to check messages from demanding people or consume negative content, you are instantly surrendering the command of your mind to the outside world. Instead, you must claim the morning for yourself. You must prepare your mind before the world has a chance to demand your attention. Spend the first moments of your day in absolute stillness. Practice deep, deliberate breathing. Center yourself in quiet reflection. A disciplined morning creates a disciplined day. Small acts of inner stillness, repeated consistently, eventually reshape your entire character. You will finally reach a state of absolute emotional freedom. Negativity may still exist somewhere in your physical environment, but it will absolutely cease to exist within you. When you fully embody this level of emotional discipline, something truly extraordinary begins to happen. You do not have to forcefully push toxic people out of your life. You do not need to stage dramatic exits, write long letters, or have exhausting final conversations. They will naturally and quietly fade away on their own. This happens because you have fundamentally changed the entire ecosystem of your relationship with them. Toxic individuals are like vines that desperately need a sturdy structure to climb and manipulate. When you completely remove your emotional reactions, you remove the very structure they rely on to survive. They will test your new boundaries at first. They will provoke and push, hoping to find a familiar crack in your armor. But when they are met consistently with the smooth stone of your detachment and the sturdy gate of your wisdom, they will eventually realize that their game is permanently over. They will pack up their drama and move on to find an easier target, searching for someone who is still willing to participate in their exhausting cycle. Your absolute silence and your unwavering peace become the ultimate filter. This filter automatically repels those who seek to drain your energy, while naturally attracting those who honor and respect your spirit. This is the quiet, beautiful victory of self-mastery. The greatest misunderstanding in life is believing that a peaceful existence means finding a place where there is no noise, no trouble, and no difficult people. But true peace is never the absence of external storms. True peace is the unwavering presence of internal stillness right in the middle of the chaos. It is the deep, enduring confidence of a person who understands that they hold the absolute key to their own emotional world, and they refuse to hand that key to anyone else. You can initiate this massive shift today. The very next time someone attempts to provoke you, do not rush to defend yourself. Do not offer them your anger or your precious energy. Take a slow, deep breath. Step entirely into the sacred pause. Let them be completely wrong about you. Protect the beautiful garden of your mind, and let their chaotic words wash over you like water over a polished stone. Do this once, with absolute conviction, and the foundation of their power over you will immediately crumble. Make it a daily habit, and toxic people will never truly bother you again. If this message brought you a sense of clarity, healing, and peace today, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our growing community. Share this message with someone who might be carrying a heavy emotional burden that no longer belongs to them. Until next time, continue building your inner fortress, protect your peace fiercely, and walk your path with quiet confidence.